Hello, this is the last lesson. We're on lesson 20 for this unit 3, and we're talking about interpreting inequalities and graphs in a mathematical model. When we model with math, that's just using equations, graphs, tables, anything we can use words to show the mathematical relationship of things. It says I know how to choose a variety, specify the constraints. Oh, I know how to choose variables, specify the constraints, write the inequality to create a mathematical model for a situation. So start out with, let's go ahead and try that warm up. So if you have the ordered pair, which is 5.43 comma 0, um, is that a solution to these inequalities? So pause, try that, and see. Okay, so is the x greater than 0? Remember, this is x, this is y. So your x equals 5.43, your y equals 0, right? So is the x value, is this x, the 5.43 greater than 0? Is 5.43 greater than 0? Yes. So you should have said yes. Is the y greater than 0? Well, is 0 greater than 0? Is 0 greater than 0? No. 0 is equal to 0. So I'd have to have the or equal to there. Is the x greater than or equal to 0? Well, 5.43, is that greater than or equal to 0? Well, we already said it's greater than, so yes. And then the y is 0 greater than or equal to 0? Yes, because of the or equal to. So the only one that doesn't work is that one. All right, so turn your page on activity 1 at the top. So we have this table of values, nutrition information. It gives us the calories per gram, the protein per gram, sugar per gram, fat per gram, fiber per gram. So everything is per gram of these different peanuts, almonds, raisins, chocolate pieces, shredded coconut, sunflower seeds, dried cherries, walnuts, all that. So Tyler and Jada each designed their own trail mix, and they're going to use two of these ingredients. So they wrote out. So here's the inequalities Tyler got. X plus y is greater than 50. 4.76x plus 6.67. Y is less than or equal to 400. 0.67x plus 0.07y is less than 30. X has got to be greater than 0. Y has got to be greater than 0. And then Jada, same thing, but with different numbers, right? And they also, with the equations, gave us the graph. So this is Tyler's graph with the different shading. This is Jada's graph with a different shading. Now, in Tyler's graph, I'm going to change this to a highlight. So where the blue is shaded, also these diagonal lines going up and these diagonal lines going down, where they all come together is the solution area. So if we look, that little section here is where the solution is. If it was on the solid line, that is also part of the solution, but anything on a dotted line is not. So here, Jada graphed all the inequalities, shaded and everything. So it looks like where the blue is, where the diagonal's going down, the diagonal's going up, they all intersect here, right? So that little wedge is the solution area. Just that area of this, of course, it would continue going up into the graph. All right, so then there are on the next page. So you probably want to open your book up so you can see both pages. I'm going to talk about these questions, but I'm going to be looking back at this problem. So open up your book so you can see both of them, then I'll end up having to flip back and forth. But the first question says, which two ingredients did they choose? So Tyler, this first equation, x plus y is greater than 50, we're talking about that yesterday in class that that's just adding X is going to be grams of something. We're not sure what the ingredient is because this is all per grams. So Y is going to be the grams of some other ingredient. So this is telling me that the trail mix they want is going to have more than 50 grams. They want to make trail mix more than 50 grams of ingredients. Right? So this is just the weight, or yeah, the weight of the trail mix. Right? Doesn't give us the ingredients. We just know we want the weight to be more than 50. But this one comes from these ingredients somewhere. So on your table, if you haven't done this already, look through the table and find that 4.76. And then if you can find that, do you see a 6.67 in that same category? So I'll give you a second, pause if you need to check it out, but hopefully it jumps out at you. There's the 4.76 and there's the 6. So that comes from the chocolate pieces. That 6.67 comes from shredded coconut. Now, if we go on to the next inequality, 0.67 and 0.07, find those on your table. So pause and find out where those are. So hopefully not here, right? No 0.67 there, no 0.67 here. Here I see the 0.67 and again the 0.07, the same two ingredients. So for Tyler, we know what he's using, chocolate pieces and shredded coconut, right? So here, which two ingredients did they choose? Tyler did chocolate pieces, shredded coconut. Now, pause, do Jada and see if you can figure out Jada's. Okay, hopefully you did this on your own without my help, but now remember X, W plus Z, he's got two different ingredients. That's why they're not the same variables. His ingredients, again, are going to weigh more than 50 grams. So when you look for the 0.14 and the 0.03, hopefully you said here is the 0.14 and here is the 0.03 right beside it. But let me do this in a different color. So let's take those away. I'm just going to erase them. So maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't, but there's your 0.14, your 0.03. But if you come up here in that same category, there's another 0.03. So maybe it's dried cherries, maybe it's raisins. Well, if you go to the next one, 0.61 and 0, over here is the 0.61. And again, it's the 0 right above it. But turns out, same with, so with this one, I know he's using walnuts, right? Walnuts. But the other ingredient, you're just gonna, doesn't matter. Your choice. Do you want to put raisins or sun-dried cherries? I'm just gonna say raisins only because it's a shorter word and less for me to write. But maybe it's sun-dried cherries. Could be either. Who knows? Okay, so going back to where you're answering, you would say that, is it Jada? She is making it with walnuts and raisins, or maybe cherries. Maybe. All right. So what do the variables represent? Well, we talked about that in Tyler, the X would represent the chocolate pieces. The grams, that's the weight, of chocolate pieces. And the y, which was what he multiplied that 6.67 times and everything, that's going to be the grams, how many grams of shredded coconuts. So we'll abbreviate. So try that for Jada. Do that same thing for Jada with her variables. Pause if you need to and try to write that. She used different variables, so hers is W, and W is going to be the grams of walnuts. And she used Z, so that'll be the grams of, and I'm going to say, just going to stick with raisins. Raisins. All right, so when we're talking about constraints, we're talking about each equation. The constraint is the less than, greater than, right? So again, we have two different people we're talking about. On the Tyler side, the first constraint we already talked about is it's going to be more than 50 grams, right? We know that his trail mix or whatever it is it trail mix, is going to weigh more than 50 grams. So look at his other equations. Coming back here, think about what he got. Where did he get those numbers from? And what is this less than or equal to 400 telling you? Same thing with the next one. Where did those numbers come from? And what then is the less than 30? So pause that, see if you can get that. So you know the first inequality came from here, so that's the calories. So he wants his trail mix to have less than or equal to 400 calories per gram, right? And then this equation came from the 0.67 sugar per gram. So he wants his trail mix to have less than 30 um, grams of sugar. Right there's the grams of sugar per gram. So he wants it to be less than or equal to, oh, not TOO, equal to 400 calories, right? And he wants it to have less than 30 grams. I can't spell sugar. Sugar. And then there's two more constraints. These last two constraints, this, I'm going to look at this on the graph. This x has got to be greater than 0 just means you want no negatives, right? Greater than 0 means you just want, and y is greater than 0, saying you are just looking at the first quadrant graph, right? So this little area is bounded not only by these lines, but it's also bounded by that first quadrant. Where this area, it's going to keep going up and up, but once this goes into another quadrant, it would stop it. So this just means everything's going to be positive, right? The grams are all going to be positive. It's going to be a quadrant 1 graph. Staying in quadrant 1 to keep all your numbers positive. So that's another constraint there. So it's going to be in quadrant 1. Just like Jada, quadrant 1. So tell me about Jada's constraints. Go back, try that, pause, see if you can get that. Her first equation, greater than 4, came from the protein column. So she wants more than 4 grams of protein. She also wants The next one came from the fat, the grams of fat, right? The 0.67 and the 0. So she's going to want less than or equal to 15 grams of fat. And then the greater than 0, that's just, it wants to be in quadrant 1. So which graph represents which constraints? Well, let's look at that right here. Just put on graph, on the graph. So I'm going to come back and let's look at these graphs. So actually, let's okay. So on the graphs, which of these lines? Well, we can look at the or equal to has to be this solid line, right? Because it has the or equal to. Has to be that solid line. So this line represents that or equal to, which we said was calories, right? So that's the calorie constraint. This x plus y equals 50. Remember, it's going to go through 50 and 50, right? When you have just the two added together. So this represents, and it's greater than, so it's shaded above it. That's going to be your grams. And then the last one must be for the last equation, and we said that was the sugar constraint. Yeah. So see if you can get those for Jada. Pause and see if you can get which line is which. So again, you can go here, right? This is the easiest one because it has the or equal to. So this solid line must represent the last one, which we said was fat content. The one that goes 50 to 50, that again will be the grams, how many grams, and that's shaded above it because they want more than that grams. So this last dotted line must be what this greater than 4 is, and that was the protein. Yeah. All right. So we labeled those on the graph so you don't have to write anything here. Name one possible solution for each one of them. So again, for Tyler, for Jada, we're going to do one possible solution. So that's again, look back at the graph or look at your other page where the graph is. Remember we said this is the region. So I'm just going to take a nice, I'm change my color again. I'm going to take a nice easy point to be a possible solution. And that's 20 and 40. So we could say for Tyler, he's going to have 20 grams of chocolate pieces, right? And 44 grams of shredded coconut. So that's one possible solution that would fit all of these constraints based on that graph. And this one, we said it was this region. So I see there's a point right there that's in our region, and that is 20 and 50. So we could say for Jada, 20 grams of walnuts and 50 grams of raisins would meet Jada's constraints. All right. So for you, activity 2, Choose two ingredients you like to eat from here or wherever. Think about and write your constraints. Do a weight constraint. You could stick with the one they did, that's fine. But then do a calorie, protein, sugar. Just pick two ingredients, pick two categories, write the constraints. Don't forget about your making it a first quadrant graph. So in the end, you should have 5 inequalities. And then see if you can graph those in the first quadrant. If you need help, use Desmos, and you can get those intercepts. When you get done, did you get a shaded region that even works? Did you make one that makes sense? And if you don't, fix something so it does, and then write a possible combination for your ingredients to get what you want. So this is all on your own. I'm not going to do because everybody could have a different one. So try that. See if you can make that work. And then do the practice problems that are assigned for lesson 20. That is it. Have a great day.